it's a pleasure to be here always. My name is Myrtani. Maybe I should say that I'm a molecular biologist. I study the microbiome, so the trillions of tiny little bacteria that we have in our gut. And at the same time, I have been trained in science communication, and I'm really, really excited to be part of this training because I always love talking to fellow researchers that are also about to also become science ambassadors, yeah, in classrooms. So I think that's very, very powerful. So this session is kind of going to be a crash course in science communication. So the plan is not to make everyone a presenter, but to help people connect. So to link your knowledge, your scientific knowledge, to the curiosity of the young minds of the students. So let's start. Yeah, let me find the best way to, okay, that's it. So first of all, let's say quickly, why communicate science to students? And here I want to tell you that communicating science isn't just about, translating complex terms into simple terms. It's mostly about lighting that spark for the students. So I want you to think of it this way. You might be the reason, tomorrow that a student decides that they want to become a researcher, or simply students start asking questions about the world and themselves. And this is a very, very powerful thing. Now, let me show you a quote. It's usually attributed to Albert Einstein. I've put a red asterisk there because I'm not sure if he actually said it, but it really captures the essence of our goal today. The quote says, if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, then you probably don't understand it yourself. So as researchers and scientists, our understanding of our work, it should be so profound that we can break it down into its simplest, most understandable form. So it's all about simplicity and clarity in communication. Now, let's talk a little bit about our audience, yeah? We're not going to be doing scientific communication, what you see on the right, yeah? So we're not communicating our work, our research to the technical experts the way we're used to doing it. We're doing something called science communication now to the non-expert audience, to the students. So probably this is a familiar picture for you, you in front of your poster, presenting your poster, or writing down your manuscript, or I don't know, giving a scientific presentation. I want you to kind of move away from that now and think more like this. So this is kind of the energy and the connection and the passion we're aiming for. So it's not about bombarding, young minds and students' minds with data, but it's more about igniting a spark. So creating this moment of wonder, like you see the boy there in the picture on the right. So we need to make things alive for them. We need to make them see the magic in the world and the magic in our research and channel our enthusiasm. Okay, so very quickly, how do we do that? Okay, and let me very quickly say that the way a researcher, us, the way we talk to kids, it's not very simple, yeah? So it's a science of its own. They're actual scientists that gain data, they gather data, they analyze the data, and they actually publish the best way that a scientist should be talking to a specific audience, in our case, children, yeah? So the take-home message from this slide is that I'm going to give you some tips, okay? It's like a toolbox to use, but have in mind that the science of science communication itself is a whole field of science, so it's a little bit more complicated. I decided for today to give you a countdown, yeah? So it's going to be the 10 science communication tips that a researcher, you can use to communicate your science to students, okay? So let's start with tip number 10. Your audience, okay? And know your audience is probably one of the most important tips in science communication. Many scientists, myself including at the beginning, I'm very guilty of delivering the same presentation at a science festival that I used to deliver during a scientific conference. This is a big no. You really need to understand your audience. Is it other scientists? Is it journalists? Is it policymakers? Well, is it secondary school students? Is it children? And children can be a very demanding audience as well. So this is probably my first tip to you. Make sure you really know who your audience is. It's probably not going to be homogeneous. There are probably going to be different students of different levels, but it's a good idea to be prepared. So this is the so-called, in the AAAS, this is the styles of communication. And I wanted to show you this slide because when a scientist talks to students, it's very different to when you talk to a scientific editor. So we are used to really giving a lot of the background, all of that methodology, and then in a very modest way, we present the results. We'll now want you to switch the triangle, kind of making it opposite. The important thing now is you give them the bottom line, so the take-home idea. The so what is really important, so make it relevant for them. And then a little bit of the supporting details. So you don't really want to bombard people with data the way we have been trained to do when we give a scientific presentation or when we write a research paper. Tip number 9. Make them care. And I think this is a very, very important tip. So we are emotional creatures, humans, and if students care, then they will remember. So tell them a quick story, a breakthrough, a personal failure, if you want, something that went bad, or a mystery. I want you to think of science, but wrapped in emotion. This can be really, really powerful. And a way to do that is to use stories. So all animals and many plants communicate, one with the other, but only humans tell stories. And stories have been used to pass on wisdom and knowledge and culture, and to strengthen social bonds since, the earliest times of humankind's existence. So our brains are actually wired to remember stories. So when you use these stories, you try to also relate them to the student's world, to your audience. So I know you study bacterial cultures like I do, related to the yogurt that they eat. Or if you work, on AI, why don't you connect it to the video games they play? So make sure this is relatable, okay? So try to have a direct relevance and bridge between your research and the interests of the students. Okay, tip number 8. Why don't you start with a hook? Why don't you start with, you study zoology. Did you know that octopuses have 3 hearts? Start with this wow moment, for example. Grab their attention like you're opening, a Netflix series. This can be really, really powerful. And let me give you some more examples here. So you do space research or astrophysics, start with the question, did you know that there are more stars in the universe than grains of sand in all the beaches of Earth? Or give you another one. Have you ever wondered why the sky is blue, but sunsets tend to be red or pink or purple? Do you do genetics like I do? Why don't you start with something? How is studying genetics similar to the Jurassic Park? One of the most magical tools in a science communicator's kit, your toolkit, is also the use, and I'm going to number 7 now, of analogies and metaphors. This can be really, really strong, So think of DNA, think DNA is the book of life, okay? That instantly provides the students with an image of something precious, coded, full of stories. And this can be a really powerful thing. For example, with the mRNA vaccines that you probably all heard until now because of the pandemic, what's an mRNA vaccine? Well, maybe it's a recipe, like give your body the recipe to create a cake. This is exactly how an mRNA vaccine is. So analogies and metaphors, very, very powerful tools to get your message across. Are you a climate scientist? Why don't you say that weather is our current mood, but climate is your personality, to really make the difference between, it's raining today, it's cold today, but yes, climate change is real, kind of thing. This is an example I use. So this is this is a so-called cell pathway. So the millions of little things that happen inside the cell when the cell decides if it's going to live or die. So this is part of my research. Every time I would go to talk to schools, to the school children, I would use the analogy of this. This is the Tokyo subway map. So when you talk about the complexity of what happens inside the cell, why don't you show them the complexity that takes place in Tokyo when people want to move around? I know it looks very complex, but actually it gets things done. It does move people around to the places they want to go. Okay. Tip number 6. Use pictures and visuals, the power of visuals. The brain really can process an image much better than it can process text, okay? So our brains are kind of hardwired for pictures and videos. We've evolved to be better at understanding pictures and videos. So there's the cliche, you know, that a picture is worth 1,000 words, or it's actually true. So it's not just a phrase, it's science, and it's a good idea to take advantage of it. Let me show you one more. Let me show you this one. So let's say that you study coral reefs, for example, and the loss of biodiversity, yeah? I mean, you can describe it in words, but how about if you show them this video? Look at this video of a, you know, beautiful coral reef that slowly is lost.
Sorry,
Okay.
Myrtani, you have 3 minutes left.
3 minutes, okay, I'll be fast. So, okay, this is use of pictures and videos. Another picture, very, very strong. I'm going to move on. And one of my favorites, you're talking evolution. This is a picture that can really take away 1,000 words. 5, keep it short and simple. Do not flood them with information, okay? It's important to have one short message for the kids. And that's a very, very important thing. My tip in position number 4, cut the jargon. Jargon is all about terminology, and terminology, technical terms can be like a wall between you and the kids. If you do need to use terminology, make sure you break it down and you explain it, okay? So if you say model of a protein, kids might think a model, a fashion model. Make sure that you really need to explain that. So let me here make a point and say that science is complex. It's not easy to break things down and not use jargon, but remember the most important, perhaps, rule in science communication, which is the goal is not for you to be 100% correct in what you say, but the goal is not to be wrong. So please remember that. Position number 3, team number 3, engage with interactive elements. Use polls, quizzes, Kahoot, especially, you know, if you're in a class or if it's online, it's really, really important. It really helps the students it helps your message be interactive. Position number 2, conclude with a memorable takeaway message. So, you know, instead of saying, we conducted this extensive study on the effects of sunlight and plant growth, you should say, I don't know, turns out plants sunbathe just like we do for their health. So use this powerful punchline, okay? That's how people will remember it. And finally, number 1, you have to practice and practice and practice. We all do, even experienced science communicators, before they enter a classroom, we always make sure that we have polished what we do. We've checked our time. We have reversed everything or talk on the technology. And that's very, very important. And I'm going to give you a +1 tip, which I think is probably the most important of all. This is all of them. And my most important take-home message is make sure you show your passion. Okay, so as Carl Sagan said, which is one of my favorite, he said that for me, not explaining science, your science, seems perverse. When you're in love, you want to tell the world. And if you love what you do, if you love your science, then the students will feel that, okay? And that's probably the best science communication tool that there is, and you should use it. And with this, thank you. I hope I was on time.
Thank you, Myrtani. I have a question because I would like to, because I know you do hands-on experiments in the researchers' night and so on, but how do you translate your experiments in the lab to the experiments, to the hands-on experiments to the children? Can you explain us about your own experience doing this in 2 minutes or 3 minutes?
Sure. I have a trillion examples. I will give you two. Yeah. So
Okay.
the first thing we do in the lab every day is we take DNA from our cells and we extract the DNA. So we take the DNA out and we see it and we read it. So one thing we do when we go to a science festival or at the researchers' night is we bring some very, very easy materials for the children to extract their own DNA. Yeah. So for example, they will use epithelial cells. We've brought the detergents, the salts, the different things, and they can actually extract their own DNA. Another thing, a little different thing we've done with this is they can also extract DNA from plants. So we give them the information while they're holding their DNA in their hands. And sometimes we also give them to them, we call it, take your genes in a necklace, and we give them a little necklace with their DNA. And we tell them how they can keep this for thousands of years, how we have extracted DNA from, Neanderthal. So it's a very, very strong molecule. So this is one example. And I will give you another example, which is an action we did last year. So as I said, I studied the gut, so bacteria. And this is all about good bacteria. But, most people and children think of bacteria like germs that make you sick. So what we do is we try to make these interactive elements where we bring Petri dishes. In the previous day, we have collected samples, I don't know, from the toilet, from your hands, from your armpits, from different parts in the environment, and we grow them. So they tend to see those bacteria. And then we also show them, we talk to them about the good bacteria. So last year, what we did is we actually brought a gut, so an actual intestine, and we had kind of fake little bacteria with their names and saying that these are the true bacteria, the good germs that help you digest your food. So they kind of can make this discrimination between good and bad players. And for some people, it was the first time that they heard that part of our anatomy and physiology are also bacteria, and we cannot live without them.
Thank you very much, Myrtani. We have maybe a couple of minutes to answer one or two questions.
Another thing we did once is we also brought a lung and we inflated it in front of the kids. And then we talked about respiratory physiology. So it can be a little bit gross and you need to keep spraying it with perfume because it stings, especially if you're outdoors. But the kids love it.